Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Week 4, done and dusted. Lots of questions to go through and respond from previous week's check-in videos. I was just scrolling through YouTube and there are like 100 plus questions. So I've got those all written down in front of me and I hope that I can go through and answer some of those for you guys today. Great questions, by the way. Please keep them coming if there's things that you're wanting to learn about as you embark on your own health goal, fat loss goal, weight loss journey. Please, by all means, feel free to ask questions. But this week has been a pretty uneventful week, actually. Nothing kind of out of the ordinary or unusual. Definitely starting to see a bit of a drop-off in my day-to-day energy level, despite increasing sleep, which you'll get to see today when we go through the check-in sheets, which you can see behind me here. But overall, a really good week, solid training. Probably could have done a little bit better with my nutrition. And again, I know that a lot of folks who have been watching the series have really appreciated like the open transparency about not necessarily being perfect. And I don't know that anybody out there, does do things perfectly, or if they do, they're a very routine, very regimented person. And I know that's how I am in business, but it's not something that I can necessarily guarantee in my personal life. So despite wanting to, do things perhaps better when it comes to this competition prep, I'm also limited by my lifestyle. And I know for some of you guys, you've got families, you've got a very stressful career, you have lots of different obligations, responsibilities, and you can't always make dieting or exercise the number one priority. So, you can only do what you can do. So I think with that being said, like knowing what your commitments are like when you start a fat loss phase is really important, because we need to be realistic with the timeframes it's going to take you to get to the end goal. So if you have followed along on this 4-week journey thus far, at the very beginning, I talked a little bit about, I guess, the timeframes that I'd set for myself to achieve this goal. It's a lot longer than what I have left historically, because I've learned a lot, having done so many competitions and dieted and builds and all those good things. I have definitely sought to better understand like what I like, what my food preferences are, how I like to eat, meal timing, when I like to train. I've learned so many things just by doing. And every year it seems to get a little bit easier. Okay, so let's take a look at, I guess, my data for the week. And then I'll talk you through, I guess, some of the things that went on, where I went out for dinner, kind of how I navigated some different food choices at a restaurant, some cocktails, those types of things. And I guess what my plans are for this coming week. Before I jump in, I just want to remind you guys, if you'd like to get a copy of my coaching check-in sheet, so this is what I personally use for all of my own clients, so you can get a copy of this as well. The links are available in the description below, so go and check those out, along with a bunch of other free downloads, different products and services that we have available for you. So go and check that out. But this column here, you can see me pointing to under the weekly average body weight column. So you can see I've actually come down by 1.1 pounds, which is great. You can see my weight at the start of the week was sitting around 139.2. And then as the week has tracked on, and again, I haven't been perfect in weighing every day, but I've got as many as I could. I have actually started to trend down. So you can see the last 2 days, so Sunday and today, this morning, Monday, I've weighed in at 136.8. So these two weigh-ins are my all-time low, I guess, since starting. And if you recall, I'm scrolling back up to week 1. And this is really important to recognize, because I was at the same weight 4 weeks ago, 139.9, so a little bit higher. And I had already trended down to 137 within the first 7 days of starting. But then what happened? Like, now my weight's gone back up. Despite reducing my calories, despite ramping up my activity, I'm moving my body more. You would assume, if we were just looking at body weight as a marker of progress, that I would be way lower than where I am right now. In fact, I've gone back up initially. And I know I talked a little bit about the influence that, resistance training and any kind of hard training can have on that acute inflammatory response. So what happens is we start to retain a little bit more water. So our total body water levels start to go up in response to that added training depth. So as you know, the last 18 months for me have been pretty uneventful when it comes to exercise. So 2 to maybe 3 times per week was what I was averaging over the last 18 months as I rebuilt businesses, wrote some books, developed an app. I've got lots of things in the firing line. So exercise just wasn't my priority. So as I started this prep journey, there's going to be an inflammatory response to all that extra work. So naturally my weight went up, and then I also had my cycle. So multiple facets here, and also dietary fiber, because I wasn't paying attention to those metrics outside of not needing to, cut for a competition. So all of those things would be indicators of weight increases. So naturally my weight kind of flowed back up, but it wasn't that I was not losing body fat. It was just, there's other things that are kind of masking true fat loss. So I am really happy to see that this week my weight is finally trending back down. I'm still a little bit behind my original goal, and I may have been unrealistic in what my weekly rate of weight loss would be, at least in these first initial few weeks, because of that increased training volume and training intensity, especially with that HIIT cardio being reintroduced. So if we look at this past week, week 4, I was due to lose 0.8, which I did. I lost 1.1, which is great. But those earlier couple of weeks, I was going back up instead of down. So I didn't factor that into my weekly target rate of weight loss. So I think that moving forwards, I'll probably be slightly behind the mark. But that's okay. I know that those initial couple of weeks keeping me behind on the scale because of the water retention. So I am very close to where I'm meant to be this week. So I look at the one weight that I've got thus far for the week at 136.8. I was meant to be at 135.9 this week. So you can see there's a little bit of a discrepancy, but we're still kind of close. We're within 1% of the target, which is excellent. If you can kind of stay within that kind of 1% to 2% range every week within the outlined goal, that's excellent. So back over to my sheets here. Let's go master data. There are a couple of interesting things that I want to talk through with you about my nutrition for this week. So you can see here in this column, protein, carbs, fats, fiber, sodium, and I didn't worry about tracking fluid intake at the moment. And I probably won't, not until maybe 2 or 3 weeks out from the competition. And that will be really important because it factors into my peak week protocols. So I'm not even going to spend any time talking about peaking. If you're somebody that's doing a photo shoot or you're a competitor yourself, maybe stick around and you can learn a little bit about how I set up that peak week. But for the average person here, all that stuff is really unnecessary. And that's really the main reason why I'm tracking fluid, or I have that column there. But that's not to say that fluid isn't important. Obviously, making sure that you're having somewhere between 35 and 45 mils per kilogram of total body weight. That's the recommended, fluid consumption. However, there's caveats to that. How active are you? How much do you sweat? Do you work outdoors in a laborious job and you're absolutely drenched, by the time you come home? Naturally, you want to be consuming more fluid if you're somebody that's sweating a lot more. You want to replace that fluid that's been lost, and not to mention the electrolytes as well. So fluid is important. 35 to 45 mils is about the average, and I definitely accomplish that with at least 6 cans of diet soda every day. Or if it's not diet soda, it would be like a half combination of strawberry soda, diet ginger beer, you name it, diet grape. There's a brand by Winn-Dixie here, which is a grocery store or a franchise in the US. For anybody that's in Australia or other countries, you probably have no idea what that is. So anyway, it's just a grocery store. It's just like Safeway or Woolies. But they stock a product called Check, CHEK. So all the US folks out there, if you're wanting to get some new flavors for diet soda, I absolutely love Check. They have grape flavor, strawberry flavor, which is unheard of as a diet product. You see Fanta, for instance, in the regular grocery stores, but they're full sugar containing. I'm not about that life. I want to eat my calories, not drink them. So yeah, that particular brand has some really good 0-calorie sodas. And then I also have a combination of the low sugar or no added sugar fruit juice. So I love, I don't know whether it's Minute Maid or something like that, but it's a big bottle and they do like strawberry lemonade, lemon. I have one in my refrigerator at the moment, which is like a mango passion fruit. And they have 5 calories or 1.1 grams of carbohydrate, 250 ml, which is excellent. So I'll have that or a sugar-free Powerade or a Gatorade, and then of course a little bit of water here and there. So that's kind of what I do for my fluid intake. Of course, anything that's liquid also contributes to your daily fluid intake. It's not just water. If you're having more liquid-based meals, for instance, you make routine smoothies or you're a fan of soups, even yogurt, like they're all liquid-based. So that too does contribute to your daily fluid, as does tea, coffee, and the rest of it. So anyhow, I digress. And sorry, the light just changed. It was really cloudy outside, and also I just saw the sun peek through. So I'm sure I'm getting all kinds of weird glare. But anyway, so you can see here, if we look at my day-to-day caloric intake, so 1500, 14, 12, 14, 900. We'll talk about that here in a minute. 1600 and 1300. And so I do calorie cycle. And somebody had actually asked in my previous YouTube video, why do I do that? You know, it looks like my nutrition is quite all over the place. Is there any particular reason for that? And my answer would be, well, not really. At the moment, my training program is a 4-day split. The sessions all have the same number of exercises. They kind of take me a similar amount of time. The volume definitely differs from program to program, but I wouldn't say that one particular session is harder than another that might govern or warrant me to have more calories on that day. They're all kind of similar. That's not to say programs that I've done in the past have been a little bit easier. You know, an upper body day, if I was doing a lower upper split or something like that, I might favor a few more calories on a harder training day that was all lower body. But right now my sessions are all full body. So they're really similar. So I don't really see any, great need to calorie cycle based on, performance or extra energy requirements in those sessions. I do my cardio on non-training days. So because I'm only training 4 days a week, I've got 3 other days to do my cardio. So, I kind of just staggered it out pretty evenly. And what's interesting is that my caloric expenditure for my cardio sessions, and if we scroll over here, you'll be able to see. So you can see here, I've got 2 spin sessions. One I did on Wednesday, and then Friday. They are coming in at 366 and 310. Previously it was 378. So for only 30 minutes of cardio, it's not a whole lot different. Well, actually, these sessions here are probably a little bit inflated because I know I've stood around and chat in some of these sessions. But it just goes to show you, like, your energy expenditure when you go really hard. And this is me, like, working in zone 4 and 5 for the entire time. My heart rate is and does not really fall below 165 beats per minute when I do these. It's grueling. But you expend a lot of energy. So that being said, I guess the overarching message here is that unless there were days where I've got double days of training, lots of extra work, or even if my, day-to-day regimen, let's say you work in a fairly active type of job where you are on your feet, your energy expenditure from one day to the next might be quite different depending on what you've got on. I know when I used to be at the Royal Melbourne Hospital doing clinical dietetics, that was a 10-story building. And we had patients from level 1 to level 10. So, some days I might have 10 right up on the top floor, which was infectious disease. And then the other times I was spending more time down in the cardiothoracic ward and I was level 1. So, my steps and my movement was so different. So if you are somebody that has quite an active type job, and maybe there are days that are keeping you a little bit more busy, you might start to see a bit of a routine or consistent higher days with your steps. It might be worthwhile, cycling some calories. But otherwise, if it's pretty similar from day to day, I don't necessarily see a need to make intentional changes to energy intake. The reason my calories fluctuate quite a bit is because it doesn't matter when it comes to fat loss. What does matter most is this weekly caloric intake number and then my compliance to my calories and protein overall. So provided that I would be hitting my daily protein goals every single day, how I distribute the remaining carbohydrates and fats from one day to the next is not really that important. So you don't need to be perfect every day. You just got to add up, throughout the course of the week. If you've got a budget of, let's say, 14,000 calories for the entire week, take out protein, whatever's left, you can skew those wherever you like, it doesn't matter. So eat how you enjoy eating. And you might find that if you continue to eat the same way as you did when you weren't dieting and now you are, there might be some more exaggerated hunger cues. And you might need to make some adjustments to how you eat. And I know as my diet goes on, and I get hungrier as I'm getting leaner and my leptin levels are going down, I will definitely have to become more regimented and consistent. Because if I was to, not eat an adequate amount of calories on my really low days, like when I get further into this prep, I will be starving on one of those days. So it's not worth it for me to have a really high day at the expense of just feeling like garbage on the other days. So it really depends where I am in that journey as to whether I start becoming a bit more regimented and, eating similar every day, because it's so low that, you don't want to give up a few extra calories for the weekend. So that's why my calories are all over the place. And this week, I guess if we look over to my compliance, I was a little under on my calories overall. But one thing that I am a little bit disappointed about is my protein. So you can see here, it's back at 88%. And that is because of 3 days in particular: Monday of last week, Friday, and then Saturday. So I want to talk about these days here. So on Monday, I have so many meetings and just so many things going on. And I guess my habit for the last 18 months has just been eat 2 or 3 meals because it's all I had time for. So I guess I'm still kind of getting back into the habit of trying to have 4 meals a day. And for me to remember to take 4 breaks across my entire workday, it's a lot. So I know that particular day I had meeting after meeting after meeting. And then by the time I got to the end of the day, I think I still had like 90 grams of protein left. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to sit down and eat like an entire chicken or, have like 3 meals to make up for my protein. So I just I went with it. It's on the low end of my kind of protein range. It's not terrible, but it's also not optimal. So I did a better job for the next couple of days, and I did have lots of things meal prepped, which was great. It was just make myself go and eat. And this was a bit easier because, at least to hit these protein targets, because on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I work with my clients. So I start my client check-ins at about 11 a.m. and then I don't finish until 11 p.m. It's a big day. So sometimes it goes a little bit longer depending on how much input everybody needs. So those days are a bit easy for me to get up and go and eat something because I don't have meeting after meeting after meeting. And we are in the process of interviews at the moment. So I've been sitting in and attending a lot of different interviews for a new videographer and things of that nature. So yeah, it's just been a big shift. And I think many of you probably feel the same if you've never been a high protein eater. And you're starting to work with a coach and they're telling you about the importance of protein, which it is, but you've got to give yourself a little bit of grace. So as long as you're intentional about making changes to how you do things, then that's all we can ask for. Friday was a tough day. So I, in the morning, had a bunch of things that I had to get done. And then I was also needing to drive from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa. And that's just over a 4-hour drive. So I packed up my entire, house. I have my house on the market at the moment. So I had a new realtor. We were going through a bunch of different things, and I knew that we were having our first brand open home this weekend. So I wanted to be out of the house so that they could just do their thing. And so I had to not only clean my entire house like spotless, I had to also plan to be away from the home for about 10 days. So I had to pack a lot more things than I usually do. Packed my Ninja Creamy, packed my food processor, just things that, you aren't normally available in like a hotel kitchen or something like that. So I bought a lot of extra things. So lots of packing, and I was just go, 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 go. I also had a couple of meetings on Friday as well that I had to be on. So by the time I got everything packed and I went down to my car, my freaking car wouldn't start. So I have a new car. It's like a 2018 vehicle. And I guess I haven't had the battery replaced since. And I guess batteries only last 3 years, maybe at most 4. And because I don't drive a whole lot when I'm at home, obviously I just sit in front of my computer, I go to the gym, and that's about it. And the gym's a 5-minute drive. The guy from AAA was like, yeah, so you just need to drive your car a bit more. Like, it's just dead. I'm like, okay. So I had taken all the cold food, put it in my car. I'd taken the cat, little Jerry, who's sitting right next to me right now, like put him in the car seat, started the car up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so annoying. Inside to take it all back inside. And then I had only moments because I was planning on taking one of my work balls in my car. And I couldn't do that. So I had to run everything back inside. It was just a crappy day. So I hadn't eaten anything until I finally got on the road and I'd thrown a protein bar in my pocket, thankfully, and a drink. So again, by the time I got to Tampa, it was like 9 o'clock and I had my entire day's food, but 20 grams of protein left to get down. So I actually had a ginormous meal and I was really hungry too. So I had a lot of protein all in one go. And I'm surprised I got myself to 93, to be honest, given that I'd had a protein bar for the whole day. So, I definitely felt like I was kind of force feeding myself at that point, but I know it's important. And, if I want to make sure that I can optimize my muscle retention during this prep, I just got it down. So that's why that day is so low. And then I went out for dinner on Saturday and then Sunday evening as well, which, oh my gosh, I have some really cool, videos that I want to share with you. So we went to a Speak Easy bar, which is called Jekyll and Hyde in Tampa. It's new. I hadn't been there before, and they had the coolest Scientology, kind of not literally in the sense of, I guess there's the religious group that doesn't believe in Scientology. Not like that, but like the cocktails were super cool. So like check this thing out. It was like served to you with like a Bunsen burner. You've got your beaker and it's got dry ice and it's just amazing. So we tried that. And then there was another one that was served in like a bird cage with, again, all the smoky cedar flavors. It was so cool. So we had a really good time. We also ordered some steak. We ordered sweet potatoes. We ordered, what else? Ahi tuna, and then I think some Brussels. So I made sure I got some veggies and then I had some protein. Didn't order any carbohydrate type or high carb appetizers this time. I kind of chose the cocktails instead, but that was so fun. So yeah, I think going out and that's another question that I had on YouTube. So there were a lot of folks. So like, oh, I didn't realize that as an athlete, you would still be drinking alcohol on contest prep. And I don't know that there's there's no downside if you don't want to drink alcohol. I mean, no pressure on my end. I think some people choose not to, and that's totally fine. I really enjoy it. I think I love the creativeness of cocktails and the flavors and the experience. So yeah, I really enjoy it. But I will say I'm not about to give up more than, say, 25% of my daily calories to cocktails, on the weekend. And that's the only time that I would do it. It would be like a Friday or a Saturday night. In this case, it was Sunday. So yeah, you can absolutely incorporate alcohol. I would, like I said, I think anything more than 25% is foolish. You're not going to get an adequate amount of carbohydrate for training purposes. And you're also potentially limiting the amount of dietary fats that you can have. And of course, essential fatty acids, very important. You can certainly trade out fats for carbohydrates, but we don't want to be messing with any of the numbers that start to see us putting ourselves at risk of clinical deficiency. So dietary fats, I wouldn't ever prescribe somebody, less than, say, 25 grams of fats. And then of those 25 grams, you want to be making sure that it's mostly essential fats and steering clear as best as you can of saturated fats based on the role that they play in cardiovascular disease and heart disease. So yeah, that's kind of my rule of thumb. So for this week, that kind of afforded me about 330 calories or so for some cocktails. And that basically means that 90 grams of carbohydrate was assigned to cocktails on Sunday. So actually, maybe it was Sunday. There you go. So you can see 168. That was the highest carbohydrate day I had. So yeah, I guess the way that I do that is I just take, 362 was what I allowed myself this week. Divided it by 4, and then I assigned that to a carbohydrate instead of, obviously we don't prescribe alcohol calories, but we can certainly assign those calories somewhere. And as I mentioned last week, I assign them specifically to carbohydrates because they have the most similar thermogenic effect of food. Now, at a certain point in prep, I probably won't be drinking because I'm going to be hungry, really, 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 really hungry. And it won't make sense for me to want to have alcohol. I will want to eat those carbs, that's for sure. So it'll be probably a little bit later on into the prep, but we'll see. So that's how I do that. The next question that someone had asked me about were pre-workout supplements and specifically supplements relating to cravings and or fatigue. So first and foremost, I don't take any pre-workout and I don't really take any additional supplements outside of just the basics. So a multivitamin, I take an omega-3 fish oil with 1,500 milligrams total. If you can find one that's higher, go for it. you're looking for about 50-50 split of DHA and EPA collectively. So 1,500 milligrams in total of those two fatty acids, those essential fatty acids. And then, I don't really have a strong need for anything else. I like it lower in calories towards the end of the prep as your recovery starts to become more challenging and you are kind of getting closer and closer to being on the borderline of micronutrient deficient. Then I'd probably look to start upping the amount of vitamins and minerals that I would consume. But I'm also a lot more cognizant of the food choices that I'm having. There are a lot more whole foods, a lot more plant-based, there's fewer and fewer empty calories, so to speak. But when you've got more caloric flexibility and you're not dieting, you can get away with having a small percentage of your dietary requirements from fun foods. You don't have to have everything from whole plant-based foods, but if you enjoy eating that way, great. So I think for me, I don't take a pre-workout. I generally feel pretty good when I'm training, as long as I'm training, sometime mid-morning and, I've had a bit of time to just wake up. But outside of that, I don't really think that there are any supplements that, at least things that are natural, that are legal, that really facilitate, meaningful improvements in muscle mass and hypertrophy. So I think people will probably ask, well, what about creatine? Yes, there's lots of studies on creatine, but I think if we look at what it does over a 12-week study intervention and we compare that to the placebo, the differences aren't super meaningful. So again, as somebody that I love training hard anyway, so I don't really see it as something that is essential. But that's not to say stop taking it. I think if you know that you're a hard gainer or that you don't always feel the best going into the gym, then why not have a precautionary supplement that can maybe assist you with that? And then I guess caffeine is obviously very widely studied and certainly improves performance. So caffeine is a great one. I don't take it just because I end up feeling nauseous when I work out on it. I don't know why. All of the pre-workout products that I used to have in my previous supplement line, I would leave me feeling really sick. And I also don't like the other ingredients that are added to supplements. I'm not a big fan of beta-alanine, the ingredient that will give you like peripheral tingling sensation. You might feel it in your face and around your ears as well and in your feet. I don't like that. I really am not a fan of that feeling. So if I were to take a supplement, it would probably just be a straight up caffeine. But I know for me, because I train in the mornings, it's always left me feeling a little nauseated and rapid heart rate. So because I really push really hard, I'm like, I don't need to go any harder. Thank you. But as far as something that, can specifically target cravings, again, nothing that is legal and natural that I'm aware of will have any kind of meaningful impact. Unfortunately, when you're in a deficit, your body's doing everything that it can to prevent you from starving. And like I always say, it's a wonderful evolutionary mechanism to prevent us from dying from starvation. We have all of these self-defense mechanisms that ramp up in response to caloric restriction. It doesn't necessarily fare us favorably, in the modern world. Once upon a time, we look back to our ancestors, they probably had a need for that when food was scarce and there wasn't a plentiful supply of food. But we have that now. So it is a little bit frustrating in that those, I guess, genetics that we've kind of had passed down from our ancestors, they don't really serve us well when we're trying to actively lose body fat for improvements of our health. So I tend to refer back to, sleep, lowering stress, spacing out meals evenly throughout the day, making sure that caloric nature of each meal is similar as well. That may help. Or if you naturally tend to feel a little bit more hungry, after a workout or right before a workout, you might like to favor a slightly more calorically dense meal around, that window. But for me at least, and again, I think it's very subjective, I try to have an equal amount of calories, as consistently as I can to prevent that. And then, of course, dietary fiber. So, when your calories are a little higher and you're, a short time frame into the fats phase, you may not get any extreme cravings. But I can tell you, at least me now moving into week 5, when we look at my scores here, I was definitely hungrier this week. My scores, appetite and hunger have gone up, and I was a lot more, food focused. That food noise, it's going on. I think every time I would open my phone to go and put like a post up last week, I found myself getting distracted with like the food porn. So yeah, I even was saying to friends and people that I've spent time with, it's been really nice the last 18 months not having any of that, and just, a couple extra pounds, and that's all I've lost. It's made a big difference to my thoughts about food. I'm like, God, what a waste of all that time thinking about food when I could have been doing other things. But it is what it is. So I wish that there was something that I could say, yeah, go take this. It's going to, solve all your problems. Unless you're somebody that's taking something like semaglutide, which impedes or impacts your appetite regulating hormones. There is not really a whole lot that you can do. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer about that. Moving through the questions, I want to make sure that I cover everything here. So a few people had asked a little bit about my training regimen. So for those of you that are currently working with our team and you have access to our app and you're using the Ms. Bikini Olympia program, which is a 6-week, 4-day full body training program for intermediate to advanced, the program is just written day 1, 2, 3, 4. But as you can see for me, I don't have all of those necessarily back to back every single day. You can see here in week 3, for instance, there were a couple of days space between, and that wasn't necessarily intentional. It was just how my weeks fell because of my schedule. I am really at the mercy of my business. So, I just have to kind of do my training when I can. And sometimes I don't have an option, but if I was thinking about it and being mindful, I would try to give myself 24 hours between some of those more challenging sessions, at least the exercises or the programs that call for big compound movements that I know make me pretty sore all over. But, this past week, I will end up having done many days back to back. You can see here, this is a great example. I did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 days back to back in that week just because of how my schedule felt. And it's either I do that or I don't do it at all. So there's the ideal scenario, which would be to space out your sessions with some time for recovery. If we don't take time to recover adequately and you are really sore, you can still train. Absolutely. I mean, I've trained on many, many sore muscles. I can tell you now, and I'm sure many of you guys have as well. The downside of training in a really under-recovered state is that you may find that the muscle growth signaling is somewhat blunted. You don't get the same motor unit recruitment. You are unable to successfully fatigue that muscle to its entirety. And thus you're not getting that same, growth signal. And that can be problematic if, number one, you're trying to build, or if you are trying to maintain as much muscle as you can during a deficit. Obviously, when we go into fat loss, we're significantly more susceptible to losing lean tissue. The leaner you are, the higher the risk. So yeah, I think ultimately I try where I can to give myself days to recover, but I also know that if I want to be ready on time and I have to expend a certain amount of calories and be in a deficit for a certain amount of time to get to where I need to be, I just got to get it done when I can. So yeah, I hope that answers the question about the training breaks. Somebody else asked me about my choice of repetitions. I know that last week I was discussing choosing higher rep ranges over some more, strength-based rep ranges. And I have done many a phase of lifting, or many style, I should say. I've really enjoyed powerlifting for a couple of years. So I have competed in powerlifting, which is just a 1 rep max for squat, bench, and deadlift. Loved it, but I was also very sore all the time. And not just muscular sore, joint pain, ligaments, tendons, injuries, because it's loading up, when you've got heavy loads, your muscle might be able to manage that load. Your tendons and your ligaments, all those soft tissues, are also taking some of that force. So it did leave me feeling really broken, basically. I'm very grateful for that opportunity to have done that because it tested my 1 rep max, and now I know what I'm actually capable of. And that really helped me in identifying where I was going wrong with my hypertrophy training. Like, I was not pushing anywhere near close to my RPE 10 for higher rep ranges. So it definitely built confidence and allowed me to train harder. So I'm very grateful for those couple of years of powerlifting in my non-competition seasons. But I would say now, as I'm getting a bit older, I'm 35 in a month's time, I've started to notice, I get joint pain. I probably have osteoporosis. My father has it. He has arthritis. It's in my family. So I know that I probably am prone or genetically predisposed to getting some of those, medical conditions. So I'm trying to be smart about this. I love lifting and I want to be able to do it for a long time. Yes, I'm a competitor. So, I need to have that extreme mindset for short periods of time. But when it comes to building muscle, training in those lower rep ranges, 1 through to 8, aren't necessarily, equivalent. Like not all volume is created equal when it comes to muscle growth. So I have erred away from programming lower rep ranges, not because I don't enjoy them. I love training for performance. I really love having a strength-based goal. There's nothing better than going into the gym and hitting a PR on a squat or a deadlift. Like it's just, any athletes out there, whether it's, running or swimming, it doesn't matter. Like if you have that, built in, it doesn't go away. So I do miss it, but I also want to be in this for the long run. So that's why I program slightly higher rep ranges. It is better for hypertrophy if you can train 8 reps and above. And it also leaves me just feeling like my shoulder health is way better. I just try to shoot for metabolic byproducts accumulating inside my muscle as the signaling molecule for growth, as opposed to the heavy mechanical load, which is obviously another way or another mechanism that we can signal our muscle to grow. So yeah, I hope that it helps you understand why I am favoring slightly higher rep ranges. It just gives me an opportunity to use lighter loads, less mentally intimidating as well when you're tired and fatigued. But yeah, I do try to do a combination of all of those, and maybe my next program will be a little different. Okay, guys, so let's go and have a look at my training and energy expenditure, and then I guess what I plan to do for the next couple of days, or at least 7 days. So you can see here, I've got my resistance training tracked. I remembered to record all of my sessions again, which I'm like, yes, I remembered. Pats on the back. So my total volume for this week went up by a pretty significant amount. So my previous highest weekly training volume was 115,000 pounds. This week it climbed to 127. And I was really intentional with taking out some of my sets with load. So I would either go up to the next set of weights, or if I couldn't go up to the next set of weights without dropping my rep range way back to like below 8, I would try to do more reps. So this week, if I were to pull up my training program, where it might have been prescribed, 12 reps for, a shoulder press or something, I went back in and made sure that I updated how many reps I actually did. So in some cases, I did 13, 14, 13. And then that way, when I'm putting in my weight, it's capturing the accurate training volume. So lots of little increases here and there this week, even if it was 2.5 pounds, on either side of the Swift machine for one of my squat variations, or the RDLs or a hip thrust. I really was very intentional about trying to, at least for one set, take my load up, because I think I started at a pretty high intensity. So I was worried I wasn't going to be able to make any increases, but very happy with that this week. You can see my caloric expenditure actually went up again. And I think because of the additional effort that I put in this week with training, that's definitely reflected there. So last week's weekly energy expenditure was estimated as being 2,100. This week it was at 2,299. My HIIT cardio for the 2 spin sessions were a little bit less than last week. Last week's session, at least one of them, this one back up here at 378, was extremely high. I think for what's normal for a 30-minute class for me. I guess I did it at the end of the day, had a bit more energy in the tank. I don't know. But either way, the number that I have achieved this week is within the range that I'm shooting for. So I'm happy with that. I did track a little bit more of my outdoor walks this week. So you're going to see my collective weekly total is much higher again than the previous week. So 3,400 calories was what I burned in total, at least the estimated, last week. And this week it's now up to 4,000. And that's purely as I am remembering to hit the go button on my dang watch and just track. So at least every week I'm kind of getting closer and closer to knowing what my true energy expenditure is. So this week you'll see when I set my goals up for what my target is for caloric expenditure, I've got a higher number this week to reflect that. And lucky last, my steps. I know last week I was like, it's so hard to get 8,000 steps in with my John, but I got it. I had a couple of really good days. Earlier in the week, I got 11,000 on Monday, and Tuesday, 10,000. And then I tapped out at 9,200 on Sunday. So I'm really, really proud of myself for that. I had to do a lot more meaningful work. I had to, in some cases, get on the treadmill after I'd finished a full day of work at like 11 o'clock to do 30 minutes. I grabbed the phone, called my friends. They're all in other states, so all's good. They're just like having dinner. So, I made myself do it. And, it was really tough after having sat in front of a computer for 12 hours coaching to then, get yourself together, muscle up the courage to go and get on the treadmill and walk. So very happy with my progress for this week. With, I guess, regards to training, I know that I am definitely getting leaner. Hopefully you'll have seen some of the training footage going on in the side here in the last week. So again, despite not really seeing my lowest average weekly weight yet, so I know week 2 was my lowest. I know we're now into week 4 and I'm still not back to where I was. I am still noticeably leaner. So I am not worried at all that I'm not making progress. That's why I really try not to rely just on the scale. I'm looking at all of the metrics. And I also measured my waist circumference the other day and it's already down 2 centimeters. So, things are moving in the right direction. So as far as what I will do for my macros this week, you can see here I've highlighted week 5. So again, I'm just setting myself 7 days at the same calorie target. But if I wanted to, and you see me do it anyway, I calorie cycle. But this is basically what my weekly target is. So I'm not changing my macros. I know that, this week I lost 1.1 pounds, but I don't want to make any adjustments until I absolutely have to. And if I do, probably going to be a greater percentage of that adjustment going to the activity side of the equation and less to the calorie side of the equation, just because I don't want to have to get down to really low calories. I think I would rather do more exercise. So I'll have to make the time. I recognize that, but I also don't want to be, on 1100 calories like I've been before. And I might still have to get there. I don't know. But I will be making more of the adjustments each week to probably my training to get to where I need to be with my energy deficit. So still 125 is the goal for protein, 140 carb, 45 fat, 20 to 25 grams on average for my fiber. This week, I do think that the last 2 weigh-ins were exceptionally low because I only had 10 grams of fiber on Saturday and Sunday. We didn't stop we were 3 hours at a 1-year-old birthday party where we had cake and lots of sweets and things. So, the calories on that particular day were, less than nutritious, but I think it's also okay to include those things at times as part of a balanced approach. But it did affect my average weekly fiber, which was a lot lower. So I think that some of the weight loss that we're seeing on the scale probably is a result of low fiber for the last 2 days. But I will do a better job this week to make sure that I can bring that back up to where I usually am. I'm training, obviously not changing. I will be shooting for 2,200 calories now that I know I can do that. So again, the pressure's on to keep succeeding and delivering on my energy output. And then for my cardio, I'm not adding any extra. I'm not going to change my step goal. I'm going to be shooting for around 4,000 calories of total energy expenditure through planned exercise this week. So yeah, I think this week might be the last week that I can get away with being at this place from an energy balance perspective. Next week, I do think that I'm going to have to make a meaningful adjustment, and I'll go through how I do that with you in that week's check-in. So yeah, no changes to anything this week. I am very excited for a strong week of training. I am outside of my normal environment. As you can see, I have like a funny backdrop because I'm not at home with all of my normal things. So again, I'm a little bit out of place, out of sorts. So I just have to be prepared for feeling a little bit uncomfortable as I move into this week. And if you are somebody that's traveling quite a bit with work, or you've just got lots of things that are kind of putting you outside your comfort zone, just, going with a level of understanding that might happen. And, you can only do your best, but you also have to plan, be intentional, and set yourself up for success. And sometimes your weeks don't go perfect, as mine obviously haven't, but it's that consistent effort over time that is going to afford us the capacity to get to where we want to go. So I will say I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the recipes and the grocery list. I did see some people commenting in last week's video that was really helpful. So as I start to do new recipes, I'll make sure that I can get those out to you as often as I can, so that you've got new fun things to try at home that are easy, not overly complicated, hopefully less than 7 ingredients is what I go for, at least when I'm so busy myself. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this week's check-in. If you've got questions, please ask. I will try to answer them either in the comments or at my subsequent check-in videos. I will be working on a brand new program this weekend so that we've got something new to follow along with. So for anybody that is using my programs, I hope you're enjoying it, but do go and take a look at the description below. I've got links for pre-workout, I guess the progress tracker, the first 2 chapters of my book, Complete Exercise Guide to Muscle Hypertrophy. That is an amazing book. It has every single category or topic related to muscle growth, or specifically exercise and muscle growth, that there is. We talk about things like periodization. We talk about how a muscle grows, like from a mechanistic perspective, what the normal rates of muscle growth are for natural athletes. And we go through a bunch of studies and talk through, what we would expect to see from a cross-sectional area or muscle thickness over, a typical 12-week to 20-week study intervention. We talk about optimal rest times for hypertrophy. There are so many really good subjects in that book, and I've tried to make it as easy to understand for the average person as possible. So you don't have to be a scientist. I kind of break down the science and make it really easy for you to understand. So that book is awesome. We've had some incredible feedback. People have said this book is better than some of the courses that they've done, and they've learned more reading this book about how to grow muscle effectively and kind of, wade through all the BS that exists to really help them with their programming. So if you haven't checked that out, it's $59. Like I said, it is better than most courses available. So I think that you guys will learn a lot from that. Go check out our recipe books, subscribe to my channel if you aren't subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week at our check-in. See you next time.